I always enjoy getting emails from the viewers, and if you have any questions, be sure to send them my way. You can put it onto the comments below of any of those videos, and I'll be happy to look at those and give you some answers along with that. Now, I did get a question from one of the viewers just recently, and in there, he is apparently from Baton Rouge. I'm not going to mention what his name is, but he says, I've been checking out your container videos, and I'm planning on building a container home with 4 containers, and each one of those will be 40 foot long. He wants to have it 2 by 2 and then stack 2 more on top of those 2. And it'll be directly on where the point loads are, right at the corners, just as they design it to be stacked in a ship. And then he's also saying that he's also planning on a pitched roof built with trusses as described in your video and with solar panels on top. Then he goes on and asks about 8 or so questions that I'll go point by point at the end of this video, and we'll discuss the answers, but it has the questions are mainly centered around how are you going to insulate the connections between the 2 shipping containers that are stacked. He's also talking about putting a stair and or an elevator, and I presume he wants to put that on the outside of the building, so he's curious how to insulate where that structure of the stair, let's say, is going to go up against the shipping container. We'll talk about that briefly as well. And then he says also at the end that he is going to elevate these shipping containers on piers, and he wants to know the best way to insulate the floor. But wouldn't it be interesting to kind of get an idea what AI might help us visualize what this gentleman's dream house might look like? Now, I subscribe to an AI website, and it's called midjourney.com. And I'm still kind of playing around with this. And so why don't you join me as we kind of explore what midjourney.com made make an image of with the parameters that this gentleman from Baton Rouge has discussed. Show me an image of a house built with 40-foot long high cube shipping containers stacked directly on top of 2 more 40-foot high cube shipping containers. Put a sloped roof built with roof trusses on top of the house. The sloped roof will travel all the way down to the level of the 2nd floor and create a covered porch along the 40-foot length of the home. The home will be on top of piers. The piers will be 8 inches by 8 inches, wood-clad piers. The base of the piers will be brick. The house will have wood clapboard exterior finish painted antique white. The trim will be black. Put outdoor seating under the front porch. Locate this house on the banks of the Mississippi River in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Let's see what happens. As you can see right here, I had a similar kind of thing that I just read to you, and it did not give me any sloped roof. I had said pitched roof, so maybe it thought it was coal tar pitch or something, and it was a flat roof. So I'm now saying it's a sloped roof with a roof truss. So let's see what it comes up with. So there it is. Still, it's not giving me a sloped roof. That's AI for you. It's going to have its own interpretation of whatever one will import it. I also said, please give me 2 40-foot stacked shipping containers on top of 2 more. And it looks like it's giving me a scrambled version of that with possibly 20-foot shipping containers and various other things. So I do see that they have the Mississippi River in the background. That's nice, and some seating, but it's not quite what I asked it, but they're attractive, aren't they? So here are some answers to those 8 questions. Number 1, when the 2 containers are stacked, yeah, it's good to put flashing over that seam of the shipping containers, especially when the spaces are going to be passing from one shipping container to the upper one all open. And if it's two separate ones and you're going to use the floor of the second one on top and you keep it separate, you don't always have to seal it, but it is still a good time. It's a good idea to seal it so you're not capturing water in between. And if you look at a video that I did a while back where I'm touring a building or a set of buildings made of shipping containers in Fort Worth, Texas, and I'll leave a link, you'll see two different ways that they connected these two stacking shipping containers. One is they left the gap. The other way, they put a backer rod between those and they sealed it. But a little bit more about that in a minute. Is it more expensive to put 3-inch batt insulation with rain screen than compared to closed cell spray-on insulation on the inside? Yes, I would anticipate, even though the batt insulation is going to be a lot less expensive than the closed cell, depending on what kind of rain screen you use, you probably will want to have additional insulation on the outside. And that insulation, again, will probably be rigid insulation, or it could be mineral wool insulation. And then there's all kinds of different types of materials you can use for your rain screen. You can use, as this example, I was going to suggest a wooden type of insulation, or sorry, wooden type of rain screen, kind of in memory of the plantation homes that were wood. They had a lot of buildings had cypress on the outside of their buildings, and maybe this could be reminiscent of that. Or you could use fiber reinforced panels and fiber cement board. And those two can kind of be, they can look like wood as well. Or you could use a metal paneling, and I know it's a little redundant to put metal paneling rain screen over a metal building, but there are some attractive metal screens that you might want to choose from. There's all kinds of choices to choose from. So anyway, these systems can have its own cost. And with the insulation of the outside of the rain screen, with whatever system you want to use for the rain screen, with the batt insulation on the inside if you wish, or spray on, he didn't mention that, all together as one compared to just spray on the inside, I think that it'll be more expensive with the rain screen. It said, explain where to install the insulation in the truss, the roof truss. As I mentioned on the previous videos, when you have the roof truss coming up, you'll want to have insulation in between those, but then you need to allow for 1 or 2 inches from the top of the truss down to the top of the insulation, so that when you have venting along the eaves, it allow for the air to pass above the insulation below the roofing, which is on top of your truss, to pass through that. And that way you're keeping the envelope within your occupied space insulated. And that'll help you prevent condensation within the attic space that the roof truss would create, assuming that you don't have a ceiling. If you do have a ceiling, if you don't have a ceiling, you're going to have a vaulted roof with exposed trusses. It said, if a stair tower or elevator is built next to the stacked shipping container, how do you connect? How is the connection flashed and sealed? Well, if you have the shipping container cladded with the rain screen, the flashing would go underneath the rain screen. In fact, I would probably put it underneath the insulation on the top part, and I would pass over some of the other shipping containers so that water is directed away from the second stacked shipping container. And I'll try to do a detail in a future video to where we can kind of dive deeper into that. It said also, is there insulation between the stacked containers? Well, yes, if there is a rain screen, you would have insulation passing continuously from the bottom one up to the top one. But if you do not, if you choose just to have insulation on the inside, no, you probably will not have insulation right at the connection. And there will be a thermal bridging that you'll need to be concerned about. And how's the gap between the stacked containers insulated and sealed? Well, like I mentioned just earlier, there is a video that I did in Fort Worth where I have pointed out how some other designer and builder built these stacked shipping containers, both with a gap exposed and also with a baccarat and insulation, a continuous seal on there. And when they did do the sealing, what they did is that they also got a metal panel, and that metal panel is covering the slot that is on the side of the shipping container that is built for forklifts to go in. And that way they have a continuous edge in order to have their baccarat and their sealant go up against. Check out that video, you'll know a little bit better what I'm talking about. And the stacked building is going to be on raised piers. How do you insulate underneath the first floor? Well, I would probably use some exterior grade kind of cladding to be on the underside of the shipping container that's raised on the pier. And that can be all kinds of things. You can use metal, steel, aluminum, you can use corrugated metal, and then there would be insulation above that in the void between that and the purlins of the shipping container. You can also use PVC panels or beaded PVC. You can use corrugated polycarbonate. You could use wood. I wouldn't really recommend it, especially in Baton Rouge, because it's a hot, humid area. You don't want to invite mold. Same goes with gypboard. There is a drywall that's for exterior grade, but that might not be the best choice for Baton Rouge area. Fiberglass panels might actually be a good idea if you want to play with even some opaque panels and play with some lights above that. You can also put insulation on the floor, and that then would be maybe a rigid insulation, and then you would put plywood on top of that. And when you do that, you're going to obviously raise the finished floor a bit, so be careful when you're setting your windowsills and your door thresholds and your door heights, because it's going to start at a higher level. And finally, number 8, how do you insulate the ceiling? Well, that's pretty simple. You know, you're putting in your insulation on the ceiling. So you put your ceiling material, which might be gypsum board. Now you have a surface to put your bad insulation onto, or maybe you will want to put it along the inside edge of the trusses, and if you're going to have exposed trusses. So there you go. I hope this was helpful. Keep writing those emails into me. I really love reading those, and I want to share them back with the viewers so we can all learn together. I'll see you later, and if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for a lot more to come. See you then.